Sunday wrapped up the West Coast swing, and William Byron capped it off with his second straight win after another dominating day by Hendrick Motorsports. And we're going to break down all the action from that Cup race, as well as Saturday's Xfinity race, where Sammy Smith gets an impressive first career victory. But first, we're going to start things off by discussing the penalties announced today to Hendrick Motorsports, Kaulig Racing, and Justin Haley, and the big one everyone was waiting on, the Denny Hamlin penalty after the Ross Chastain incident at the race. We break all of it down right now on this episode of 3 Wide. Now, today we had the big news. What everybody's been waiting to hear is what penalties were going to be served to Hendrick Motorsports, as well as Justin Haley with Kaulig Racing and Denny Hamlin. Now, everybody's eyes was really on Denny Hamlin. At the end of the race on Sunday, he seemed to get out of shape, if you watched it initially, and kind of go up the track and take himself and Ross Chastain into the wall, ruining what would have been a really solid day for both drivers. But after the race, Ross and Denny, they were seen talking it out on pit road. And on Denny's podcast on Monday, Actions Detrimental, he pretty much came out and said that it was intentional. He meant to take Ross Chastain out of a good finish. He said, and this is his words on his podcast, was, if I'm going to finish bad, then so are you. If I'm going to finish back there, you're coming with me. And this divided a lot of fans over social media. You even had former drivers chiming in, and it was really split. You had a lot of people that were saying there shouldn't nothing be done to Denny in this case. It's boys have at it. Ross Chastain has wrecked him so many times last year. NASCAR shouldn't do a thing. They'll be ruining it all if they mess with him, if they penalize him. Well, NASCAR did penalize him. They fined him $50,000. They docked 25 points from his driver standing, and fans were crying foul. They don't understand why NASCAR is punishing Denny in this case. But to me, it's pretty cut and dry. It's not so much what Denny did, it's what Denny said. If Denny had not said a word about it on his podcast, this penalty wouldn't have been handed down. But Denny went on his show and said, numerous times, this was intentional. It was not an accident. It was not a mistake. I meant to take him up there. And Denny did say he didn't mean to hurt his own finish, but unfortunately he got caught up in it, and it did ruin his finish. So said him and Ross talked on pit road. Denny let it be known that that was for the clash earlier in the year. This was nothing to do with last year, and Denny felt like he had to get a point across. A few problems with this that I have. Number one is, why say anything about it? Why, when asked about it on his podcast, I understand he's saying he wants to be truthful, but I mean, just why? You know what the reaction is going to be. You know NASCAR is going to look into it. Look at previous history with NASCAR and drivers intentionally taking one another out. Most of the time, drivers are getting in trouble because they're opening their mouths and saying, yeah, I meant to do that. Yeah, I took him out. That was on purpose. That's what's getting these guys in trouble. I have no problem with how Denny handled it at the race because, like I said, watching initially, I mean, it looked like just a racing deal. Denny had 2 tires compared to everyone who was right around him's 4, and just didn't get a run off and got out of shape and went up into the wall with Ross. And Ross wasn't going to say anything because Ross is definitely more of the, he can give it and take it, is how he's been so far. So Ross wasn't going to say anything. He wasn't going to go to NASCAR and say, y'all need to look at Denny. This was on purpose, so on and so forth. Denny made that choice to say that. And fans are saying, what about what Dale Earnhardt did? Dale Earnhardt used to do that all the time. Well, I don't remember Dale Earnhardt getting out of his car and getting in front of a microphone, at least very often. I don't have any memory of it. And he would say, yep, I meant to take him out. I got tired of him and I had to send a message, so I put him in the wall. Most of the time it was Dale saying, mad at the other driver because of what happened, or kind of just walking off, not saying much about it, like, oh, we'll deal with that later. Or in the famous deal with Terry Labonte of Bristol, I didn't mean to wreck him. I just meant to rattle his cage. So, like I said, there's no issue with what Denny did. It's the fact that he said anything. If Denny had waited 6 weeks down the road and decided to talk about it, NASCAR wouldn't do a thing about it. At least I don't believe they would or should. that far down the road. So it all comes back to Denny opening his mouth and talking about it. And I got some things off of social media that was posted by some fans. One was penalizing Denny Hamlin was the dumbest thing NASCAR could have done today. NASCAR cries for personality, uses wrecks to market the sport, touts fights and drama, but takes 25 points for walling someone on the last lap. Clown show. Again, it's not about what Denny did. It's just when you come out and you say, "Yes, I did this intentionally," that's putting the target on your back. That is putting attention on you. And when you do that, NASCAR's going to have to come down. NASCAR's going to have to do a penalty because they've done it before. It's been done in the past seasons where you look at William Byron, what he did to Denny under caution at Texas. William Byron got out and said, "Yep, I did that on purpose," and he was penalized for it. So, I mean, don't get mad at NASCAR for being put in the spot where they have to make a call. I think if they didn't penalize Denny, that would cause more problems down the road, where now drivers could be more, blatant about taking somebody out and going to the media and saying, "Yeah, I did it. What's NASCAR going to do? What's going to happen?" And for fans and media members saying this takes away the boys have at it, personality, drivers wanting to talk to the media, it does not. That has been an argument made for as long as I can remember when it comes to incidents on the track. These drivers are going to be in the heat of the moment when something happens. And when that happens, all bets are off. There's still going to be retaliation. There's still going to be angry drivers talking to a microphone. Nothing is going to change. This was simply NASCAR being put in a corner by Denny's comments saying, "I meant to do this. I did it intentionally," and having to make a decision. I think they would have been doing a more of a disservice to themselves by not doing anything at all. Like I said, no problem with what Denny did on the track. I don't understand why he did it if he's doing it because of the clash and exhibition race where everybody was running over each other. And that's the other thing. If you're wanting to do retaliation, I think you could do it better. This was not a well executed payback, and Denny even admits it himself. And one reason why it makes no sense is because it didn't really cost them anything. I think if you want to do some payback, you do it in a spot where it's going to hurt the other guy the most. When it's in the playoffs or when the guy's going for a win to get playoff points, to get locked into the playoffs, that's when you strike. Not when you're running, in the back half of the top 10 and you see an opportunity and you take it. That that is a poor idea of doing payback. And while they said there was a truce, they agreed to a truce between each other. I don't see this ending. I don't see this being the end. Now, I don't think we'll see any, them mixing it up anytime soon on the track. But Ross is a hard nosed driver. He's going to go out there and be aggressive. He always has. And I think he always will be. That's what Justin Marks loves about him and loves him having him at Trackhouse Racing. They're going to cross paths again. They're up front too much around each other for it to not. And the time will come when Ross is going to move Denny again and it's going to all come back. It's all going to be refreshed. So I don't see this rivalry being the end, being over after Phoenix. I think this continues, no, maybe down the road as we get into the playoffs. But while Ross, these guys, these drivers, they say, "Yep, it's over. It's a truce." These guys have long memories. Ross may say, "Yep, we're all good." But if he sees an opportunity down the road, he's already an aggressive driver, so I doubt he'll put on extra gloves around Denny as we get further away from this deal. So I just, it's a bad situation. It's NASCAR's put in a box. Denny had to send a message. You can understand all of that, but NASCAR had to do a penalty. They had no choice, in my opinion. So, and for everyone saying, you're ruining a great rivalry, I don't think so. This is a great rivalry. And I don't think it's escalated to the point where it's kind of going to fizzle out. This to me is one of the better recent rivalries we've had in a while. You look at the rivalry of Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski. That's a rivalry that has just continued on, and it'll go through its quiet period and then it'll pick back up. Quiet period and pick back up. This has the makings of that kind of rivalry. So don't flip out initially. Don't lose your mind thinking everything's ruined between these two drivers. It just may be quiet for a little bit, but I'm pretty sure this will heat up. Later on down the line, whether it's this season, next season, or the season after that. Like I said, these drivers have long memories, so we'll see where it goes from here. I'll be interested, and I know many others will be interested to hear Ross's take on it when we go to Atlanta Motor Speedway and he starts doing media sessions. Denny, I don't know if he'll have a lot to say over the weekend. He's already said he's not going to appeal the penalty, and he'll discuss it all on his next episode of his podcast. So that's going to be a heavily listened to podcast next week. The other penalties that were done was Hendrick Motorsports, where they had, and I may be saying this part completely wrong, their louvers, basically the arrow vent at the front of the car. They were all confiscated off every Hendrick Motorsports car uh, after practice before qualifying. NASCAR also took them from Justin Haley and his Kaulig Racing team, and this led to speculation of, okay, what kind of penalties were they going to experience? Because last year, when teams were messing with these parts that they're now all getting from the same group, it was some pretty heavy penalties. It was the $100,000 fine, 100 points taken away. Was this going to continue? Were they going to keep the heavy hand on this? And the answer is overwhelmingly yes. All four Hendrick drivers, Hendrick cars have been fined $100,000, leading to a total of 400,000. Each driver, William Byron, Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson, they lose 100 points as well as 10 playoff points. Now, Chase Elliott didn't suffer any points penalty as far as on the driver's side due to him being out with injury, and Josh Berry didn't because he's not accumulating cup points. He's running for the Xfinity Series championship. So where this really hurts is Alex Bowman. He was the regular season's point leader. Now he has went from first all the way to the mid 20s and a good way away from the points lead again. And that's a shame because he has been on a heck of a start to this season. William Byron, who just scored back-to-back wins, those 10 playoff points he accrued from them wins, from the 5 points, they're gone. He does still have the playoff points from his stage wins, but it's kind of like the last 2 wins never even happened as far from a playoff perspective. Kyle Larson, he now has, I believe, -9 playoff points. So how that all shakes out, I'm not sure. But now these Hendrick drivers are really behind the 8 ball, where they're going to have to start clawing and fighting back. The parts that they confiscated obviously didn't affect a whole lot. They were still the dominant team Sunday at the race. But NASCAR is continuing to send the message: do not mess with these parts. Do not modify them in any way, or you're going to be dealt with a heavy penalty. Justin Haley with Kaulig Racing, he also got hit with a heavy penalty. The same thing, $100,000, 100 points gone. And Justin only had 60 points in the standings as it was. So now he has -40 points out, in last place in the point standing. So him and Alex Bowman, I think, are the ones really hurting from this points penalty. Now, just because of what they've built up for Justin Haley, it's now gone. And he's pretty much starting not only from square one, but square -5 at this point. So it'll be interesting to see how these teams bounce back. Hendrick Motorsports is going to continue to be strong. They're going to, I think, be another top team to watch this weekend in Atlanta. And Justin Haley has a good opportunity to get a lot of these points back at this super speedway style racing, which is his strong point. So it'll be interesting to see what comments are made to the media throughout this weekend from Hendrick Motorsports drivers, Justin Haley, especially Ross Chastain and Denny Hamlin. So keep an eye out on what drivers are saying this weekend. You can keep up with all of it on social media, on TV. It's going to be the talking point for this weekend's race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. If you're looking to update your hunting or fishing apparel, then look no further than Hunt to Harvest. Over at hunttoharvest.com, you can check out their new selection of spring design shirts, where they have plenty of choices for turkey hunting as well as multiple types of fishing. And guys, I got to tell you got to act fast because these are some of the most comfortable shirts you will ever put on. So just head on over to hunttoharvest.com. You can select their spring 2023 selection option at the top, and it will give you all the choices in front of you. You can also check out their mystery box special, where you can still get 3 shirts chosen at random sent to you for $33. And at $11 a shirt, you can't beat this kind of deal for that high quality product you'll be receiving. So head over to hunttoharvest.com, and whenever you go to check out, be sure to enter that promo code RADNEY18923. That's RADNEY18923 for even more savings at checkout. So on Saturday, we had the Xfinity Series kick things off. Sammy Smith comes away with a very impressive first career win. He he's had good runs this season. Looked like he was going to be the guy to beat at California at Auto Club. Uh, but here at this race, he led 92 laps, comes away with his first career win. And his teammate Ryan Truex, he finishes in second behind him. And Ryan looked really strong in this run. This was his first start of the year for Joe Gibbs Racing, and struggled a little bit there at the beginning. Definitely didn't look like he was up to snuff yet, but that team went to work on the car, and Truex, he just took it and ran with it, man. He looked like at one point he was going to be able to catch Sammy and start fighting for a chance at the win. Ultimately, wasn't able to, but a good solid second place finish for Ryan. He's going into next week in Atlanta, a little bit more confidence and some good momentum on his side. So he's going to be a dangerous driver to watch that can go out there and pull an upset. It would be a very popular win if he's able to get it. Sheldon Creed, who finished in third, he had to overcome plenty of adversity in his day. You had he did finish second in stage one, finished 10th in stage two, and didn't lead any laps, but looked like a solid top five car. He spun out after stage two, got tires put on it, and had to run on some really old worn tires while everyone else still had a little bit fresher rubber. But he was able to really take advantage of those late cautions, wheel his way up to a third place finish. It's not a trophy, it's not the checker flag, but a very solid third place finish for Sheldon. He comes away with some great points on the day. Riley Herbst continues his strong start to this season, and it's looking like it's not a matter of if, but when he's going to get that first career win. He's been the strongest Stuart Haas car between him and Cole Custer so far this season. So again, you're seeing the growth of Riley in this sport, in this series. He's been the butt of many jokes that he's a pay for driver, but you got to give him credit. He's knocking out these top tens and top fives. I forget if this is 7 or 8 races in a row where he's had a top 10. So I don't know why people, really rag on Riley. I know he had a rough start to his career, especially at Joe Gibbs Racing, but he has really turned it around since he's went to the Stewart Haas Racing team. Uh, Talking about his teammate Cole Custer, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if Cole it's just taking him time to get back used to this style of racing, to the Xfinity Series after being in the Cup Series for a few years, and it hasn't been necessarily disappointing, but I would say surprising the runs he's had this year. He's leading laps, he's running up there at the front. It's just like he cannot get it together to finish it off, to get that win. He did have some mechanical issues back at Auto Club, a race he probably would have gone on to win, but that one, fell through. But here he is again, a 12th place finish. So eventually, it's going to kick on for Cole, and he's going to be up there, knocking out wins week in and week out. It's just, I guess he's just got to get back in that feel of an Xfinity car. I'm not sure. Chandler Smith has another solid top five with Kaulig Racing. He did have some contact with his teammate Kyle Busch on the last lap. Chandler would have finished probably in third place. Kyle would have been right there with him. I didn't really see what happened, a good replay of it, but from what I've heard and read, it sounds like Chandler may have, they were racing really hard for that spot coming to the checker flag, and drivers just may have run out of room. Just good hard racing deal. Fortunately, it didn't cost them too bad. Chandler still gets a top five. Kyle Busch gets a ninth place finish, but man, they both could have been right up there in the top five. Their teammate Daniel Hemrick, he gets a 10th place finish. And what was a solid day for Daniel, something he really needed. He was able to get stage points in both stages, come away with a top 10. So a much needed good run from start to finish for Daniel. And the Junior Motorsports guys, man, they continue to just be bouncing off of each other. You had Sam Mayer spin out, Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier got taken out in a pretty good sized crash after some contact with his teammate, Brandon Jones. So I'm not sure what's going on with the Junior Motorsports guys, but man, they don't seem to be gelling right now. And as we get ready to go into Atlanta, super speedway style racing, how will they work together? Will they have, better teamwork than they did at Daytona? I'm sure that's going to be the talking point for those guys in the competition meeting this week. Also, you had drivers like Brett Moffitt another solid finish, 13th for his team. Anthony Alfredo with BJ McLeod's team finishes in 14th. So solid run for Alfredo in that car. And that's one that I've always, start at the start of the year, people were kind of ragging on Alfredo, him going from R Motorsports to BJ McLeod, what was viewed as a step down. But Anthony has made the most of it. He's had some solid runs in that 78 car. Now we get ready to go into Atlanta, where obviously Austin Hill is going to be the favorite. He's going to be the guy everyone's looking to knock off the pedestal. We know how good he is on the super speedway style racing. And can anyone beat him? It's all going to be about teamwork because we know he's going to be fast and he's going to be tough to pass. So these junior motorsports guys, these Kaulig Racing guys, they're going to have to work together extremely well to be able to get around these Richard Childress Racing guys. Who knows? Maybe Sheldon Creed can hang with Austin, and it gives him a shot at the win. But Chevrolet, they're looking strong in the Xfinity Series as well as the Cup Series. So it'll be interesting to see on the Super Speedway who gets the race win. Now, the big story for Sunday's Cup race was the new short track package that NASCAR's implemented. Would it make that big of a difference? Would it make for better racing? As this was our first glimpse at it before we get to Martinsville and Richmond, which I believe will be the first true test for it. But it was going to be interesting to see if it changed anything. And while it wasn't, this incredible race from flag to flag, to me, it was still better than we saw last year. You still saw some passing going on, probably, and more than you did last year. I believe, looking at the stats on Racing Reference, there's about 500 more passes in the race as a whole as compared to last year. And it was a decent race. I think it is definitely a step in the right direction. It's just a matter of what will this look like at Martinsville or Richmond. Those are going to be the two races that are key for it. And, with this next gen car, what really set it apart was how it improved the mile and a half racing. But unfortunately, NASCAR's bread and butter right now, the short tracks and the road courses, really suffered with this new car. But NASCAR, they're being proactive. They are trying to make for better racing at those tracks. And I think today was a good starting point. This is going to be something that takes time to fix up, to improve. This isn't going to change immediately. So be patient, bear with it, be thankful NASCAR is just acknowledging that there was a problem and it needs to be fixed. But William Byron, he came away with his second win in a row, again in an overtime finish. But he was able to hold off Ryan Blaney and Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick, who had the freshest tires of all of them. After that, all the drivers made a pit stop there before the overtime finish. Now, Kyle Larson was by far and large the dominant car of the day, leading 201 of 317 laps. But there at the end, Kevin Harvick appeared to be on his way to what would be a fan favorite win. He's won 9 times at Phoenix. That was repeated multiple times Sunday. But he's looking for his 10th win at the track, and he had gotten around Larson and had set sail. He had that clean air and looked to be well on his way to lock himself into the playoffs. Unfortunately, caution came out late due to Harrison Burton spinning out with just a handful of laps to go. They get back racing before overtime. Another caution falls, and that sets up the overtime finish. But before we got to that overtime restart, everyone came in pit road. Nobody stayed out, which was surprising to me. I wonder if they kind of, were a little leery about doing that after what happened with Truex last week at Vegas. But you did have drivers gambling going for 2 tires. Kevin Harvick took 4 as compared to everyone else like William Byron, Blaney, Larson, who took 2 tires. Denny Hamlin was another one who took 2 tires. But on that restart, it got Kevin Harvick stuck about middle of the top 10. Just was not able to make up a whole lot of ground on the 2 final restarts. But it was some interesting racing between Byron, Blaney, Larson, and Reddick. On the restart before overtime, it looked like Blaney had a chance to get on the inside of Larson going into the dog leg and possibly make a run at the lead. Now, Larson looked like he kind of started to push the issue on blocking him. If he had kept turning down, I think it would have turned Larson and made a big wreck, made a big mess at the end. But fortunately, cooler heads prevailed there. Ryan didn't force the issue. He tried to live to fight another day and comes away with a second place finish. Kyle Larson finishes in fourth. So it was another solid day for Rick Hendrick Motorsports. Now, Reddick, if he had been able to, to get around Blaney a little bit faster, or if we maybe had two more laps than what we did, I think Reddick would have been the one in victory lane. He was the first on 4 tires, and he was very fast there at the end. And I think if he'd gotten around Blaney, it'd have been a matter of no time before he got to Byron. Chase Briscoe, who finished in 7th, he is the defending winner of this race. Going into this race, I didn't have a lot of hope for Chase to do well in this one. Nothing against Chase. It's just simply the Fords have not been impressive so far, especially last week at Vegas, and especially the SHR cars. So I was really concerned how strong was Chase going to be as he comes back to the place where he won his first career Cup race. And he had a solid day. He wasn't that great at the start. His crew had to work on the car. He was able to finish in 10th in stage 2 and follows that up with a 7th place finish on the day. So gets a top 10. It was a solid day for him, as well as his teammate Kevin Harvick. Ryan Preece, he finishes in 12th. So a much better weekend for not only Ford finishing in 2nd, as well as 5th and 7th, but a solid day for Stewart-Haas Racing also after their bounce back from a disappointing Vegas. And another driver with a very impressive run was Josh Berry. Gets his first career top 10 after running in the top 20, top 15 for most of the race. Takes advantage of those late cautions. Just works his way up to the front and gets a solid 10th place finish. And this was huge for Josh. After the disappointing start last week at Las Vegas with a 29th place finish, you wanted to see some improvement. This is Josh, his second race in a next-gen car. So it's not like, there was a whole lot of thought, or should have been a lot of thought, that he was going to come out and just light the world on fire from the get-go. But this improvement and the race he ran Sunday, it's definitely something to keep an eye on as he gets more starts in this car. I think he'll only continue to improve. And as we're getting ready to go to an Atlanta super speedway style race where he has been very strong in the Xfinity Series, this is an upset special you need to keep an eye on as we get into the race Sunday. And I know Josh is probably kind of in a tryout period right now. It's, kind of where does he go from here? Does he stay in the Xfinity Series where he's a championship contender with Junior Motorsports? Does a top team, come forward and give him an offer for next season? Does Junior Motorsports move up to the Cup Series next year? It's a lot of unknowns with Josh right now. So he's definitely going to be looking to go out there, keep the car clean, complete the laps, but come away with the best finishes that he can, impress, catch somebody's eye out there to hopefully get a shot at getting back in the Cup Series next year. Now, Alex Bowman, he continues his top 10 streak. He finishes in 9th. Unfortunately, with the points penalty that we just talked about earlier, it's kind of a moot point. He now falls from the points lead, regular season points lead, to now outside the top 20. And so it kind of feels like all this work, all this good that he has done so far at the start of the season is kind of for naught due to a parts issue with his team and across the board at Hendrick Motorsports. And of course, we discussed the Denny Hamlin Ross Chastain deal. They finished 23rd and 24th. Like I said, not the best move, I think, for Denny. If you want to do payback, you got to wait till it's a better spot for it to count, to send a message. I feel like this was kind of a wasted payback in the grand scheme of things. So with this new car, like I said, I think it was a better race, a step in the right direction. Does this mean Phoenix? Everyone should be comfortable with Phoenix hosting the championship race this fall? No, I think this is a championship race needs to be rotated between tracks, but at least NASCAR is working on it and trying to make these short tracks much more competitive and much better, more like we've been used to seeing over the past few years.
And that'll wrap up this week's episode. As always, thank you for joining me and listening along. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it from: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many others. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week, and we will catch y'all at the same time next week and go over all the action from Atlanta Motor Speedway.